Really excited to have you all. And we are going to talk about extremely practical AI tips for hitting your end of year goals. So you probably heard a lot about AI this year. We're going to talk about what are the exact things you might want to do, put into practice, knowing that we are uh, fast and furiously coming up on end of year, and you are probably quite busy. A couple quick notes on housekeeping. This event is CFRE approved for 1 credit. So if you're doing this, just make a note. At the end of the session, we are going to drop a survey in the chat. My colleague Phoebe, who's put a ton of work in here. Oops, I think I may have to be adding Phoebe as a uh, a co-host. So let me just do that quickly so that she can record this. Give me 1 second. This way we can get the recording to you because everybody wants the recording. Great. Great. Phoebe, sorry about that. Get you all ready. Again, we don't have our normal setup here with extra monitors and everything else as we are rolling. So anyway, at the end of the session, we will drop a survey in the chat and you will fill that out, hopefully, but it will also make sure that we can get you for CFRE records. So what are we going to do today? We're going to do some very basic intros. We're going to talk about some of the interesting things happening in 2024, just as we think about end of year. What are some of the factors at play? How does the election matter? How does the stock market matter? What else is happening? Then we're going to talk about some of the, before that, we're going to talk about some AI developments, which should be pretty interesting. It's different than when we talked about 6 months ago. There's some new things. We're going to talk about some extremely practical AI tips. If we get a chance, I'm going to show you one of the cool things that I like using as a tool. And then we'll also talk about one of the cool breakthroughs in AI that's happening with the FreeWill team. So all of that's going to happen. We'll send the recording and the slides around later today. Again, apologize for the less than perfect acoustics and the less than perfect lighting, but so glad to be here together and hope you enjoy this. So quick intros. My name is Patrick, lucky to be the co-founder and co-CEO of FreeWill, alongside my absolutely wonderful co-founder, Jenny, pictured here. And we are very proud to be the co-founders of FreeWill and work alongside this amazing team, more than 200 folks, I think like 220 now, and working with more than 1,800 nonprofit partners, including many of you. Again, if that's you, thank you so much. If you're a partner and you are in Orlando, come get one of your awesome mugs. As we talked about, we are the biggest estate planning tool in the country. We've been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, AARP, named top philanthropists in the world by Town and Country, which is a little crazy. And we get to work with all these organizations. So lots of stuff going on here. Very proud of our team. And this is the team that we're very proud of. And just as I mentioned, raised almost $11 billion for charity to date and do everything else. Okay, so we often like to give away books that are going to make you smarter, but hey, it's end of year. We're all working hard. Let's get some beauty in our lives. And so my actual very favorite book in the world, Overstory, that we gave away 2 weeks ago, is close. My absolute favorite book in the world is a book called A Gentleman in Moscow. Molly says it's amazing. Rachel says it's amazing. Or maybe she's talking about the Wall Street Journal. But this is legitimately my favorite book in the world. So GT says it's the best book ever, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to send a copy to 20 people because we love you and we want you to be happy. And there's nothing like beauty in the world. This is just a little tangent. Gentleman in Moscow is this astoundingly good book by Amor Towles, who also has written books called The Rules of Civility, which is great. And more recently, a collection of short stories called Table for Two, which is beautiful. So check those out at your local independent bookstore if you don't get it. Make a note in the survey at the end of the session. If you'd like a chance to get a copy, tell us where to send it, et cetera, et cetera. I am going to read you now. We don't normally do this, but because it's my favorite book and I want you to read it, whether or not you care about anything else in this session and whether or not you get it, I'm going to read you my very favorite quote from this. I'm going to try not to cry, but it's so good. And so here's what we're going to do. This is the main character at sort of at the end of his life. He says, "I'll tell you what is convenient," he said after a moment, "to sleep until noon and have someone bring you your breakfast on a tray. To cancel an appointment at the very last minute, to keep a carriage waiting at the door of one party so that at a moment's notice it can whisk you away to another, to sidestep marriage in your youth and put off having children altogether. These are the greatest of conveniences, Anushka, and at one time I had them all. But in the end, it has been the inconveniences that matter to me most." So great book, read it. some of the best writing you will come across. And make a note in the survey if you're interested in that. So big shout out to Amber Tolles. Great, great author. Okay, now we're moving on, but go read that book. How's your week going? Well, if you were all reading Gentleman Moscow, you'd be a lot happier. But instead, I think people's getting a little election stress. And so you're seeing that come down a little bit, a little more anxious. But generally, we're doing okay. So that's good news. And then in terms of confidence of hitting goals, better news here. We're about flat from last 2 weeks. And I think we seem to be situated for a very strong end of year. So get ready on that. A lot of hard work in between, a lot of good reading, hopefully. And we will talk about some very practical tips here, but there's some really big things to do to make it work. All right, let's talk about the latest developments in AI, watching to see things like Melissa say the end of year appeals at the printer right now. It's all happening. So let's just quickly talk about what's been happening in the last few months because it's hard to keep up with. First, the latest ChatGPT model called o1. The naming conventions of these are terrible and unclear, but it's o1, has significant problem-solving skills and reasoning skills. It's a bit slower, but not really slow to the naked eye, and it's much smarter. So you're starting to see these incredible advances month over month in AI. Anthropic, which is another company, it's a rival company to OpenAI. OpenAI makes ChatGPT. Anthropic makes something called Claude. Claude is just a rival to ChatGPT. It created an advanced AI model capable of interacting with and operating a computer. So this is a little bit more for engineers at the moment. It's not quite for us civilians, but at some point you'll say, click on my computer, book me tickets to Orlando, do whatever it may be. Really, really good. Claude tends to be, we think, a better writer a little bit than ChatGPT, but there's some cool things. As you've probably guessed, also most of the images in this are AI generated. So here's a little chick reading about the news of AI. So hope you enjoy those, and a big shout out to my colleague Phoebe for making all those. Meta recently revealed several new AI models, including a self-taught evaluator meant to make AI help make AI better, which is really fascinating. Also, Meta just came out with these wild new glasses, which project holograms so you can actually read without looking down. Not available for market yet, but they previewed them. Those will have AI, and that is going to be life-changing. So that's cool. Here's another big fact, which is wild, and you should be, if you can sort of pat yourself on the back if you have the shoulder flexibility to do so. Nonprofits are adopting AI faster than the private sector. 58% using AI compared to 47% of B2C businesses. Excuse me. What does B2C mean? It means business to consumer, so someone that sells directly to businesses, unlike someone that sells business to business, B2B. So pretty cool. Why is that happening? Well, it's because nonprofits like us don't really have a lot of time. We need more capacity. It's very, very useful. And so that's a really big deal. Recent studies show, we've talked about this before, but it's really important. AI outperforms MBA students in some studies. So Wharton, which is the fancy business school at the University of Pennsylvania, their professors conducted a study comparing business ideas generated by MBA students versus ChatGPT-4. Just as a reminder, Wharton is a very selected business school, often thought of to be one of the top 3 business schools in the country, potentially the world. So these kids are like maybe not dumb. Some of them are pretty smart. A lot of them are 26 to 32, deep in business. And yet, when ChatGPT was prompted to generate an idea for a new product or service appealing to college students that could be available for $50 or less. By the way, apologies to anyone who went to Wharton. I'm sure you're very smart. It responded with 200 ideas in less than an hour with minimal supervision. Obviously, it's quick, but how do these ideas compare to the business school students who, again, are highly trained, very smart, and selected? I think the Wharton School has an acceptance rate of like 14%, maybe less. And folks who were then later, these actual college students said, what do you want to buy? Do you want to buy this or that? Not knowing where it came from. And respondents were much more likely to buy products generated by GPT than by MBA students who presumably weren't in college that long ago. I mean, these folks should be able to do it. So very, very interesting there. When we also see, who's using it by age, what you see here is that in 2024, it's a little complicated graph, but just trust me that the lighter blue colors are people that use it either at work, outside of work, or both. And you can see how big this jump is among older folks, among younger folks, and across the board. So everybody's using it across sectors. So that is helpful. Carmen just told me that I'm occasionally freezing. So if that's happening, just roll with it. We're going to get through it. We're an imperfect hotel Wi-Fi, but we make the best of what we have. Adam says, go Quakers. Shout out to everyone at UPenn. Again, great school. But just goes to show you, pretty impressive AI, beating out some of the folks at UPenn. So when we ask you, do you already use some form of AI in your work? 68% said yes. Now look at this. In May, which was what? Someone help me out with math. 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 53%. So you see this big jump. Last October, only 40%. So, a huge jump there. And in March of 2023, which was only like 19, 20 months ago, 11%. So this is among the fastest adopted technologies we have ever seen anywhere. Fax machines didn't go like this. Certainly the phone didn't go like this. Even the internet didn't grow like this. Cell phones, smartphones didn't grow like this, in an 18-month period, going from 11% to not quite universal, but on the path to universal adoption. This is a really, really big deal. I mean, really big deal. It's a credit to you all being open and curious. So this isn't a thing that's just credit to the AI researchers. It's a credit to you folks finding ways to be more efficient and effective with your time. When we ask you if you're doing it in your personal life, again, we see about 2/3 of folks doing this. Recipes, songs, travel planning, all these things happen to be quite useful. Statistically weird dip in May from February. That may just be statistical noise. So check that out. By the way, if you use it in your personal life, I'd be curious to know what people are using it most for. So feel free to just enter that in the chat. Would love to know what you're doing. I find it very helpful. One thing I do sometimes, I'm actually in sort of a random Hilton hotel today at this conference. And, I tend to work out pretty regularly and my gym has good equipment that I go to. And so I have a plan. And then I'll go to one of these hotel gyms and there'll be like an elliptical machine, some super light weights. They might not even be even. And I'll just say, hey, here's what I've got. Make me a full body plan or make me a whatever. And it's really helpful. I'll be like, because then I can follow directions and I don't sort of get lazy because it's told me what to do. So that can be quite useful. Do that. Free therapy, travel ideas, donor letters, TikTok trends, recipes, outline ideas for writing, so much stuff happening, right? So that's cool. We asked you, by the way, have you ever used FreeWill's AI tool, Willie or Sophie? We'll talk about those in a second. And 40% of you have used it, which is crazy, right? 40% of you have used a very specific tool. The tool is awesome, by the way, so you can check it out. But just to give you a sense, really happening. All right, so that's what's happening in AI. Things are moving, if you haven't sort of gotten the memo yet. And one of the things that's happening is your organization is using AI whether you know it or not, right? And if you're managing people, some of these, the younger people you're using you're managing are definitely using it. And so let's sort of figure it all out. All right, but we always think about what to do in context, right? It's not like there's a good plan. There's a good plan for right now, for this moment, for the context that we're in. So let's chat a little bit about what 2024 end of year is going to be like, because that will allow us to extrapolate. Okay, we have new technology. We have a certain set of circumstances. How might we use AI given all this? Meredith says, can you give a link to Willie and Sophie? I'm just going to type it in right now. So Willie, Phoebe's on top of it. So Willie, and by the way, Sophie is for your faith-based partners. So if you are a church, a synagogue, a Christian organization, doesn't matter if you're Baptist or Methodist or Catholic or Greek Orthodox, it will actually adapt to all of the different types of denominations, whether you're more conservative or less conservative, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty cool. Okay, back to this. End of year looks to be the making of a gangbusters year. So the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, as well as the NASDAQ, have reached record highs in 2024. Generally great news for giving, which is highly correlated with the US stock market. Stocks this year have had their best 3 quarters of the 21st century. Economists are predicting positive trends to continue through the end of 2024. But as a reminder, no one can predict the stock market. This is not financial advice. It's not tax advice. And it's not legal advice. The US economy is expected to expand 2.8% in 2024. According to the IMF, 2.8% sounds a little mediocre. It's very good news. right? It's a good expansion, not overheating, but good economic news. Here, just to look at S&P, pretty good, serious situation. 33% up on the year is great news. Stronger stock market creates a few things. One, people feel good, right? People talk about the 1920s, I think, as the era of good feeling. Part of that was that, the stock market's growing, everyone's getting a little bit wealthier. The other thing that makes a strong stock market good for giving is this idea of unanticipated or unearned wealth. If I win the lottery, I'm much more likely to give that away than if I get paycheck after paycheck after paycheck. Also, more investment growth means higher capital gains liabilities. And so I want now, as that donor, to look for ways to save taxes. So I used to give cash. That was just what I give with a credit card. People ask charitably. And now I give almost exclusively out of a donor advised fund. And at some point, I moved some Google stock that I bought in 2008, which, by the way, was a very good move. 2 years ago, I put into a DAF. I didn't pay any taxes on it. And now that is how I do most of my giving. And it's been a huge benefit. It also means I give more than I would otherwise. Insight 2, non-cash giving continues to be on the rise. A greater share of nonprofits are actively promoting non-cash giving to their supporters than ever before. Non-cash gifts accounted for 27% of itemized contributions in 2013. Fast forward to 2021, 46% of all itemized charitable contributions are not cash. This is a huge, huge, huge deal. We don't have data for 2024, but you imagine that when trends start, they continue. So this is a big deal. In January survey, 41% of fundraisers reported an increase in non-cash gifts during end of year season, and something like 5% said less. It's not that the other 59 said that. At FreeWill, we saw a 22% increase in non-cash gifts from Q3 this year to Q3 last year. That is a huge, huge jump. And with the biggest giving days of the year in November, December, we expect to see these figures grow even more. All right. The 2024 election will also have an impact. So many of you might know this, but we are exactly a week from, is that right? Wow, that happened really quickly. Exactly a week from the US presidential election. End of year will take place this year over Election Day, between the transition period, and obviously inauguration is January 20th. December 11th is the legislative deadline for settling election disputes. Fingers crossed we don't have any of those. December 17th is when the electors vote in each state. Again, fingers crossed. If it's a close race, undecided, or at all out of the ordinary, you might expect 24-hour news coverage. It also means Giving Tuesday is going to happen while attention is potentially elsewhere. This is a very big deal. We'll talk about how to navigate this. But last year's Giving Tuesday was in a relatively quiet political time, at least compared to 2024. This, by the way, is a reason why we're having back-to-back webinars and not doing one on Election Day. So hold off there. The 2024 election will have an impact. So historically, nonprofits aligned with the losing party see a sharp increase in giving after an election. Nonprofits aligned with the winning party see a slight decrease in giving. This is especially true, by the way, if the election result is a surprise. And right now, it feels like any result is going to be a surprise for a lot of people. So if you're a conservative organization, you are likely to see a boost in giving if Kamala wins. If Trump wins and you're a progressive organization, you're more likely to see a boost in giving in that situation. So interestingly, the thing that you're probably rooting for is the opposite of what's going to be most helpful to your fundraising. Charitable giving increased in 9 out of the last 10 presidential election years. The only exclusion was 2008, and that was mostly because what happened? The stock market crashed. So stock markets are highly correlated with with charitable giving. So it's not that Obama's election in 2008 tanked charitable giving. It's mostly the economic factors across the board. Happy Razana says, are folks pausing their donors calls next week? It's not crazy, especially in swing states, but if other folks have plans to continue or not, let us know. Monica says she's pausing, etc. Here you see total giving over the years, and you can see that in basically every presidential year, it continues to go up. Obviously, 08, 09, 10 was a big drop, really tough economic period there. All right. That's a little bit what's happening. We're going to talk about the value of AI, especially at end of year. And we're going to dive in here. So when we ask you, hey, you're looking back at year-end's giving season, Were you working outside of regular hours? Are you stressed? Are you working too much? And only 13% said rarely. Instead, 44% said occasionally and 40% said frequently. Right. So lots and lots of there. By the way, this question of are we pausing donor calls next week? I would pause donor calls on election day. But you might even want to text someone and say, hey, crazy day, just thinking about you. But in terms of Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I don't see any reason to slow your roll there. We also ask you, how true is the following statement? I find myself significantly busier during end of year compared to other times. 37% say completely true, 56% say somewhat true, and not a lot of people say not true at all. So, this isn't going to be a surprise, but we are entering busy season. So how can AI help? Well, first, we can give you this calming cat by the fire. And so suddenly your anxiety is going down. Great photo or great image, Phoebe. And we can help by creating better quality content in less time and actually enjoy our jobs more, regardless of the sector, right? So if you're a religious organization, if you're arts and culture, if you're a private school, if you're a university, if you're an advocacy organization, what we find is that people report being understaffed, undertrained, and overworked, right? This is common. It's not only the nonprofit sector, right? This happens in a lot of workplaces, but it's a common thing in the nonprofit sector. We're often understaffed. Plus, most of what we do is communication. Some of it's written, some it's verbal, but a lot of it's words, right? So there's more words than numbers. MIT research, which this is one of the most important studies, I'm going to show it to you in a moment. Some of you may have seen it before, shows that AI increases a couple things. Increases productivity, which is great. We all want to be more efficient, but only if the quality of work is going up. And we show that AI actually increases the quality of work, but we don't want to be miserable, and it actually increases happiness. So you have more, you can be more productive. That output is higher quality, and you're happier doing it. So generally, that is part of the reason that it's leading to this huge uptake of AI usage. So here's the research from MIT, just to show it to you. If you want to sort of wonk out a little bit, you can see the post-treatment or the control versus the treated. At that first point, how much time did this thing take you? Well, on average, it was taking folks 28 minutes in the control without AI. And then it will also take you about 16 with. In terms of when people rated it, again, not knowing whether it was AI or not, they gave much higher grades to the AI work than the just humans alone, which is pretty cool. And then people said, there's research that said, well, how satisfied were you doing this work? And you can see a much higher satisfaction score across the board. So really fun. It's just also it's nice to do great work. And so when you can team up with AI, obviously often with teammates and AI, it just makes people happier generally. So here are some AI tools to start getting familiar with. ChatGPT responds to text and pictures. It remembers past conversations, so it gets you a little bit more personalized results. It searches for real-time info like news or trends. It can provide answers on any topic. It does cost $20 a month for the more advanced version. By the way, the advanced versions are much better. It has limited web browsing, and it's not always 100% accurate, which is true of all AI. But ChatGPT can be a little bit worse. Claude, similar, effective at complex tasks. It can analyze images. It's designed with a focus on preventing harmful outcomes. It hallucinates less. It also costs $20 a month, which if you're doing it personally, might be okay. It adds up at work. It doesn't have real-time browsing capabilities. You need to use specific prompts, etc. Claude, by the way, as some folks noted, tends to be a little bit better at good human-like writing than GPT, but obviously that's changing. We built a tool called Willy, which is on top of some of this technology. It's been out for more than a year, which is sort of crazy. And Willy, our little friend here, pictured here, people love Willy, by the way. If you've used it, let us know. But they sort of feel like it's their friend who's really smart, sort of like a very talented OWL intern who can do whatever you want. Generates content that's ready for you, has been used by thousands of nonprofits, 100% free, and uses the more advanced AI than you might use for free on your own. And then we put on top of that a whole bunch of research-backed best practices. So it's a lot of our own research and collected research on top of the technology. So Becky says uses it frequently. Kristen says such a great resource. Ron just says Willy is great, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have an even more advanced version called William. That's just for FreeWill partners. It's even more in depth and That's in Partner Portal. So if you haven't used it in your FreeWill partner, go check that out. Very cool. What does it do? It writes really good fundraising emails. I used to be a professional email fundraising writer. I used to do politics back in the day. I worked for President Obama, got to do a lot of fun ghostwriting for President Obama, and Michelle Obama, and even Bo the dog, which was sort of wild. And I wish we had this. It would make my life so much easier back then. So it could have done that. It can write direct mail copy. It can write great thank you notes at scale, which is a big deal. It creates a permanent giving guide, which we'll talk about later. This is one of the permanent giving guide is one of the most important marketing pieces that you can have. So just mentally sort of put a note there. We'll come back to it later, but permanent giving guide is a must for organizations trying to actually raise a good amount of money. It can help you with smart giving messages in time for end of year. So one of the things we'll see, we'll talk about this more in a second, but boy, you must be getting 100 or 50 or 100 fundraising requests a day in political season. Smart gifts like stock or QCDs or DAFs that cannot be used for political fundraising can help you cut through that. It can be very, very useful. And much, much more. So give it a shot, willie@freewill.com. There's a chance, by the way, that it sort of stalls out for the moment right now if like 800 people do it at one time. But if not, just bookmark it and do it later. That's only a problem at webinars when we talk about it and everyone hits it at exactly the same second. Also, if you would love to see a shout out of any of the faith-based partners. So if you're a faith-based partner, people have been loving this. It is for houses of worship, faith-based orgs. Again, also 100% free. Built for all Christian denominations and the main branches of Judaism. We're looking to expand that as well. Give it a shot. What does that do? Well, it can get you pulpit announcements. I'm actually not totally sure what the equivalent of pulpit announcements are in the Jewish faith, but it will do that too on Saturdays. Bulletin inserts, ideas for sermons, Bible study questions, Torah study questions, high holiday appeals, creative e-newsletter articles, social media posts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is life-changing if this is your work. So give that a shot. That's really fun. People also, by the way, someone else said, Karen says, I absolutely love it. Laura says, Cameron, check it out. It's just a joy to sort of put it in and then read it, right? You're sort of surprised by your own creation. If you want to just have a little more fun on a day-to-day out basis, go check that out. Okay. Now, some of you might say, well, can we use AI at our work? It turns out that most people are doing it anyway. So just as a note, but some people have asked us to model an internal policy document template for AI use. Now, again, our view is that we don't think you need this, right? You don't have an internal email policy. You don't have a copy machine policy. But if it will make you more comfortable because you are a little bit more sort of small c conservative here, not politically conservative, we have crafted an AI policy template. When you fill out the survey, we will share it with you in an email so you have it in case you want to use it. Here is what it says. I'm going to answer a quick question here. Susan says, as someone else asked, how is our data and what we craft used by others via Willie? Short answer is it's not. So the tool is calibrated, so it's never trained on your inputs. Nothing goes into the system. I think we don't even see the prompts. But in any case, there's no sort of risk of uploading donor data to the cloud, et cetera. Michael says, did we use AI to craft your AI policy? No, we don't think we need it, but here it is. So here's your template. We're going to email this to you in an editable format. So intros, this is an AI policy document, et cetera. We recognize, this is a really important thing. We are not just protecting against bad things when we think about our AI policy. We have an obligation as organizations doing amazing work in the world to use technology to maximize our effectiveness. So it's not simply a do no harm, which is also very important. I don't want to take away from that. But also, we're not really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in terms of having impact on the communities and causes that we care about, then we're not really doing our jobs to the full degree. So dive in here, right? That's the intro. 2, ethical purposes. We commit to use it in a way that's fair, transparency, non-discriminatory. It prioritizes the welfare and rights of individuals. And we make sure decisions are made with consideration for their impacts on society. Some data privacy stuff. Data will be stored securely We will comply with everything, etc. We will not upload personal, private, or sensitive data to train external AI models without consent of external parties. So we're not training external models, right? If you keep it in-house, it's sort of in the same way as CRM, that's fine. But we're not uploading it to areas that might be using it to train. That's a really, really big deal. System transparency. We are open about the use of AI systems. When it's used in decision-making, we'll be clear about the processes involved, et cetera. And with content, all text written with the help of AI will be reviewed by a human before it is made public. Or when it's not reviewed by a person, it will clearly be labeled with AI, by AI without review of a human. Any photorealistic images, which some folks are using, or video created primarily by AI is labeled as such. Any person in said images or videos have given permission for such usage. So you can't take my photo and say, hey, just make a training, right, by Patrick for my organization without asking me about it. If you want to do it, send me the video, but as part of the policies. Some stuff on accountability and governance, who's actually in charge of the policy, AI system security. If you're doing any of this internally, most of you will not be developing your own model, so this is not a big deal. But if you do, if you're a much more complex organization, you want some stuff there. Again, we're not going to read all of it. And then, of course, compliance with local laws and regulations, which you should be doing anyway. All right, so some stuff on employee training and awareness. We are going to skip this, but you will have it in your email box later in case you want to use this as well. All right. A lot of people ask this question, whether it's about foundations or donors or something else. How do donors feel about AI usage? What I hear from donors is they better be using AI, right? Donors want to know that you are fighting to be as efficient as possible with the dollars that they're giving, that you're having the most impact possible with the dollars that you're being granted. And so this tends to be a thing that donors are pushing as opposed to resisting. If you'd like to inform supporters that your team is using AI, here's a great piece of language that you can use and that I know some organizations are already using. Please note, the Missoula Humane Society sometimes uses artificial intelligence alongside human expertise in content generation to be maximally efficient and make the most impact at the lowest cost. And no one is going to be mad about this. Instead, they're going to be excited, maybe even want to hear more, and more likely to give you money. Okay, so that's some background, right? Let's talk about some extremely practical AI tips for hitting your end of year goals. Tip one of the most valuable pieces of content and strategy that AI can help is personalization at scale. Using an AI tool like Claude or Willy, you can draft personalized email templates. You can provide a prompt that includes the donor details, name, past donations, interest, and ask AI to create a personalized email tailored to those factors. If you're using Willy to do this, it will automatically include research-backed fundraising best practices that you might be missing because it's hard to keep track of all of these. Many organizations are finding right now that their AI emails are outperforming human-written emails, or that collaborative work between AI and humans is outperforming humans alone. Very, very helpful. So how do you do it? As an example prompt, again, you've sort of already put some background here. Create a fundraising email for a donor named Sarah who donated $200 last year to her education program. Thank her for her support and encourage her to give again to the same cause. You might also, by the way, paste 3 paragraphs about your education program and what happened last year. Then it will spit it out. In Willy, you can put this in the other instructions for the magic email maker, but you can keep doing this. You can keep editing it. And now you're reaching out to your major donors with a much more highly personalized approach. And this is going to take you about 45 seconds per donor. So suddenly the donors that we used to treat, right? We only used to treat the $10,000 donors this way. Now a $1,000 donor or a $500 donor can get this personalized outreach because you can do it at scale. Very, very helpful. Same thing with direct mail, right? You can organize your donors into groups, major donors, first-time donors, recurring donors, and then send different mail to each of them because you can do this faster. You can have more details for each segment. And then you have tailored letters. This is going to go a lot better than a one-size-fits-all piece. If the tone doesn't feel right, you can just make little adjustments. Say, make it warmer, make it less formal, more formal. Very, very useful across the board. Instruct AI to craft an engaging story. Some ideas for crafting a solid piece of direct mail at the year end. Sharing success stories for your organization. Highlight future impact. Create a sense of urgency for the donor. All of these things that you can add in. And you always want to include an approximate word count. One thing about AI is that it's not perfect with word counts. It's sort of an interesting thing. Computers have been doing word counts forever, and yet AI is not quite there. So you can always just run it through an external word count if you need it as well. Now, Michelle says, it seems like it runs the risk of sounding very similar to everyone else's emails. This is actually not the case. When you run it through and you try different organizations, it will feel very different. You can even do things like upload a writing sample so it fits your tone of voice better. Also, if you customize each one, then I don't see much time savings. So one avenue here is that you can paste. You can say, look, I need you to write 50 emails. Here is a Excel grid of the name, the email, the last place they gave the last amount, et cetera, and they can then generate 50 emails in one go. So think about that. As an example, write a personalized direct mail letter to a recurring donor who gives $50 each year, et cetera, et cetera. And if you use Willy, they'll ask you the questions just to speed all this up. So go check that out. 3, send the best thank you notes of your life. So one of the things that really hurts me, right, really sort of pains me, is when you are sending out this amazing email or this amazing direct mail piece, and you put hours and hours, or months in some cases, as you get ready for end of year, and then your thank you notes are terrible, right? They say, thank you for your gift of $40. 90% of donors consider a thank you email the most important communication they receive from a nonprofit, and yet your automated responses are often terrible. Sorry to pick on you, but they're terrible. I get them because I give a lot of money away. AI can help you craft a personalized thank you note in a fraction of the time for each communication. So if you write an email about a 3rd grade student who needs tuition help, have the thank you note talk about the impact it's going to have on that kid's life, right? Don't just have this thank you from the school, et cetera, right? So please, what if we ended terrible thank you notes this end of year? We can do it. It's going to make the donor much more likely to give again. You can, by the way, even include links to other things like make a planned gift or volunteer or just give more. All these things because you now have a personalized note and it feels like you are engaging with them more. So we can do these more quickly, or we can load these up in our automatic thank you for that donor, for that donation page. So let's stop doing terrible thank you notes. That would be really great. If you're actually grateful to your donors, let's put at least a little bit of effort in. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Try to send these thank you notes within 48 hours. Whether you have 100 or 10,000 donors, AI can efficiently generate a personalized thank you note for each one of them. You can upload, again, sort of the Excel of people that have made it, and then have it spit out different ones. That will be quite useful. This will leave you more time to devote to major donors and other folks that require a more hands-on approach instead of just typing these out endlessly. Big deal there. How do we do it? Example prompt, create a thank you email for a first-time donor named John who contributed $250 to our environmental conservation project. Mention his impact on et cetera, et cetera. Here's a write-up of our project, right? So you can obviously edit this and then spit it out. That can be quite useful, and so on and so forth. Willy, again, the tool that you saw, willy.freewill.com, will craft an even better personalized thank you note because we've uploaded all of the best practices in fundraising and all the best practices in thank you notes. So feel free to try that out. Just a reminder, Willy is totally free. If you never want to work with FreeWill and you want to use Willy every day, we will be happy for you. For the question, can you share any more details about the donation? Just put a little bit of context in there as well. And then there's a question in Willy, do you have any other any instructions or prompts? And you can say something like this. Alex says, do you think we are losing personal connections with our donors by relying so much on AI? Alex, no, right? As long as you are reading this and you're giving input to make it specific to them, it's going to have a stronger component. By the way, for major donor, you have to read that email before it sends out. So you are responsible. You have to stand behind the things that you're saying, but the donor isn't sort of feeling like, well, how much did you time pressing keyboard buttons to make this happen? So great question. Alex says, will we record this? Will we receive the recording? And yes, of course, you will receive the recording. Willy can quickly generate talking points and major gift officers during their one-to-one conversation. So I had a fun morning in Orlando. I went to an hour-long session with Dr. Russell James. Many of you know and love Dr. Russell James. If you don't, it's okay, but he is the best, sort of most well-known, most respected, and honestly hardest working academic studying modern fundraising. He is unbelievably great. And he said this, he did an hour-long session, which is things that we've talked about already, which is that these smart gifts, these non-cash gifts, DAFs, stock, real estate, et cetera, will lead to dramatically higher gifts. One of the challenges is that not every fundraiser is comfortable asking about this. So what we're going to do is make talking points specific to each donor in 3 minutes before you go into an hour-long one-on-one conversation, so that your team does feel confident and you can actually not just sort of have these generic non-cash talking points, but tailored for the donor and your organization in a way that might lead you to getting a 10 or 100 times larger gift. So this can lead to transformational gifts just with about 60 seconds of work to get ready for that meeting. This is true, by the way, of your junior staff who might not be as comfortable, or your senior staff as well. Meredith says, what are non-cash gifts? Non-cash gifts are anything that isn't a credit card or a check. So you can think about stock, gifts of stock, gifts out of a retirement account, gifts of crypto, gifts of real estate, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's keep going. How do we do it? Using Willy, create your most compelling smart giving message. Select the asset you hope they'll give moving forward. Stocks, DAFs, crypto, QCDs, whatever. Give some quick relevant information. Example, Susan and Lee are a married couple in their late 60s, never given a gift of stock, but have expressed their desire to have a bigger impact. They've been major donors for 10 years. And boom, we have talking points, right? 30 seconds, Susan and Lee. So when we meet with them, we get to say your invaluable support has been instrumental in helping us fulfill our mission. I just saw Phoebe join on video. Phoebe, anything you want to add? Or was that, go for it.
No, I'm going on video now. Thank you.
That's all right. A little surprise video guest. Happy to have Phoebe here. Just as a small note, you guys got to see Phoebe, who's not usually on camera. Phoebe busts her butt week in and week out. Some of these take 10 hours of work for Phoebe to lead on, and she does an outstanding job. So if anyone can drop big shout out to Phoebe in the chat, it would mean a lot to us and her. And she just got promoted, I think 2 weeks ago. So we're super happy for Phoebe. Great to see you, Phoebe. I know the feel like I'm hitting the wrong button. Just again, as one more side note, when these webinars first started, we're still figuring all this stuff out. It's back in 2020. And, 4 or 5 successful successful webinars. And then one of you, somebody was just like, hey, we're getting ready, but not on video. And a couple people texted like, Patrick, I don't think you're muted. And I had literally just been like playing piano by myself to sort of relax before the webinar. And I was like singing the Beatles song, Let It Be, to myself quietly off key to like try to chill out. And anyway, it was like broadcast for 1,000 people. And so that happened to me. So Phoebe gets off easy in terms of missed buttons. That really happened. All right, so back to our talking points for Susan and Lee. Thanks for being patient with that digression. Over the past decade, your invaluable support has been instrumental in helping us at ARC, et cetera. We want to introduce you to a new way of giving, non-cash gifts, et cetera, et cetera. By transferring appreciated stocks or assets directly to the Red Cross, you avoid capital gains. You may receive a charitable deduction for the full fair market value of the asset. This way, your benevolence can stretch even further, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really, really good, right? And you can obviously make some changes as well. A bunch more talking points that I'm not going to read out. You can hear my voice start to go. It's been a busy few weeks already, and certainly a busy few days of this conference. But you get the sense of everything we need to know going in, and suddenly I feel more comfortable and confident talking through all of this. Really helpful. Tip 5. One of the things we talked about previously for gift officers, talking to major donors or EDs, is one of the most valuable things you can do to really break through. On top of any customized email, is pick up your phone and record a 30-second video to that person and send it over. This is going to do miles more than any written communication. They are much more engaging than text-based messages. And we have reached the point with Instagram and TikTok and other things where people are okay with not hyper-professionalized videos, which some of you fall into a trap of feeling like I've got to spend $8,000 on a production team to make a video, when in fact, someone just wants to hear you talk about looking directly into the camera. Hey, here's a couple of updates on our organization. We're doing really well. Some big things are happening, and we'd love for you to chip in to make it possible, whatever it may be. Now, unscripted is, of course, a little bit of a metaphor here, because you can actually use GPT to script you informal donor videos. And so this can, if you're feeling uncomfortable, you probably want to do something like this: write a conversational script for a 2-minute Giving Tuesday video, include some of our key achievements, you put those in, focus on urgency and impact with a clear call to action. And by the way, you can do this on a one-to-many approach, or you can do this one at a time. If you have a major donor, I would strongly encourage you to do this for your major donors on top of doing this one-to-many. Bonus tip, as I said, the permanent giving guide is one of the most important pieces of material that you can give to your donors ever. So it's really, really good. You can see here pictured, this is a brochure. There's a sort of a special graphic design section for partners, but for non-partners, you can make a text-based version in Willy. What is a permanent giving guide? A permanent giving guide is designed to be held on forever by your donors, explaining some of these better ways to give. Now, one of the things that's useful about it is it can be used for any organization, meaning it will be branded with your organization, but when they're giving to their church or their synagogue or their mosque or their alma mater, they'll go look at it and they'll be reminded of your organization whenever they're giving anywhere. So give that a shot. It explains non-cash giving in very clear, accessible ways to donors. This is hugely valuable. People that have made these and given them out have already reported really strong results. This is one of the must-dos. Whether you do it right now or whether you do it in 2025, get one of these, print it out. Very, very, very important. Adam, by the way, says our donors at a small nonprofit in Seattle love the behind-the-scenes videos with the CEO and other leaders. These are so, so valuable. Please think about it. And you want to mention, of course, non-cash options in the giving guide and in your end of year giving video, because this is where the big gifts come from. Okay. You can send the PDF to follow-up emails and encourage people to print it and save it. So Bridget says, where do you get it? You can go to Willy, or if you're a partner, in your partner portal, we have that print marketing library, which people love. Go check those out. How to do it. Anyway, here's the prompt. We're not going to read all of it, but when you get this PDF, copy that print, copy that whole script, put it into GPT and see what it does for your organization. Okay, we are almost out of time. So I'm going to give you a couple things. One is Phoebe, the aforementioned amazing Phoebe, is going to drop a survey in the chat now. Thank you, Phoebe, right on time. And honestly, the most important part of this is that you can get one of these 20 books. So if you just want to sort of sit, enjoy, get this book before end of year, it is just the best. So do that. Make a survey, make a note in the survey, include your address so that we know where to send it to you. Otherwise, you can't win it because we can't give it to you. Such a great book. By the way, if you don't get it and you see it in your local independent bookstore, pick it up. Give it. It's a great Christmas gift for a friend. It is, I think it's relatively devoid of like super adult themes. So you can, more than a lot of great literature. So you're pretty safe giving this to anybody. Great book. Someone who's read it more recently, let me know if that's wrong. It's a Netflix. Read the book. This is one of the few things where I think the book is so much better than everything else. Okay. Other things is that we are super duper proud of what happened last week, which is that we announced the acquisition of something called Grant Assistant. Grant Assistant is an unbelievably great technology. It is, I was telling someone this at the conference the other day, like we are constantly scanning the landscape of sort of all available technology to help make nonprofit fundraisers' lives better. And it has been years and years and years since we've seen something that's great. So the Grant Assistant, the core of it is it will help you write grants. It is built on AI, but has a lot of other proprietary technology and combines with human effort to write grants in about a third of the time with a higher chance of winning. And if you are someone who either is sort of a 1 or 2 or 3 person shop and you wear many hats, this can really help you do more grant writing. If you are a grant writer at a medium-sized org, it can really triple your output. And if you're a big team writing lots of grants, it can make you much more productive and do it quite well. So go check that out. if you don't mind. We'd love to see and talk to you more. It is on Halloween, on Thursday at noon Eastern. I was not planning to be on costume, but maybe I will think about it. You can feel free to join in costume as well. But honestly, this is wildly cool. So come check it out and give that a shot. And so what else is happening? Okay, so I assume most of you are not at this conference and actually doing things, but if you are, tomorrow I'm doing a session live, not on video, in Orlando with Lisa Barr of NPT, doing a first look at the latest and greatest data around donor advised funds. So many of you know that NPT does a canonical report. This is their 9th or 10th every year on the rise of donor advised funds. And I just saw Sarah's joke. Thank you. And so we are going to do this as a full webinar on November 19th. You will see the latest data on donor advised funds. I got a sneak peek of it last week. It is fascinating. There's a lot to talk about, and we're going to dive in on that. So come hang out with us November 19th with Lisa. Come join that. And again, if you haven't filled out the survey already, please do that as well. Just email me at patrick@freewill.com if you have any questions. And that is it. One thing I actually wanted to, so feel free to leave. But before that, I just want to say a huge thank you, A, to Phoebe again, and B, for joining. And then there's actually one other thing I wanted to show you, which is more cool. I'm gonna switch this to sharing sound. More cool technology that I really like, and I'm just going to show you a fun example of this. This has nothing to do with FreeWill, by the way. But Google Notebook LM, which is a Google product, allows you to upload any document and turn it into a podcast, which is sort of interesting. And so I'm just going to play this for a moment. I actually uploaded some information about Grant Assistant, which is a little bit self-serving here. But just to give you a sense, let me know if you can hear this.
Welcome back. You know, we love to dig into listener questions, and lately we've been getting a lot of questions about AI and grant writing.
Oh, yeah, definitely a hot topic.
So we thought it was time for a deep dive into one tool in particular called Grant Assistant.
Interesting.
Yeah, and, try to figure out, is it really the game changer it claims to be?
Well, it certainly caught my eye, too. I mean, it feels like every day there's some new AI tool promising to, revolutionize everything.
Right.
But this one is definitely making some waves, especially in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, and this isn't some fly-by-night startup either.
Right.
The company behind Grant Assistant, FreeWill, already has a pretty impressive track record.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, they've helped nonprofits raise over $10.7 billion.
And they're working with, over 1,800 organizations now?
Yeah.
And they have this goal of helping nonprofits raise a total of $1 trillion.
$1 trillion.
Yeah, so it's clear they're thinking big.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks here. What exactly is Grant Assistant promising to do?
Well, their big claim is that it can cut grant writing time by 2/3.
Wow.
They're quoting a 64% reduction in time spent on proposals, which,
That's a lot of time.
yeah, imagine what you could do with all that extra time.
Okay, I would love to sit here and listen to you for 12 minutes or 16 minutes. That's on 1.5 speed, which is probably even too slow for most of you podcast listeners. Phoebe, I don't know if we already have the follow-up email, but maybe we can drop the link to the podcast in the follow-up email, and so we can figure that out. But anyway, back to all this. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, this world is, I was just talking to some folks about it this morning, we're in a wildly changing world that is evolving incredibly quickly. It's stunning to see, go from 11% participation in AI to 60, high 60s in 18 months. That is crazy. And what do we know about trends, especially things that are accelerating? It shows no signs of slowing down. And so you're going to see some really fascinating shifts. Probably AI video is a little bit of a parlor trick right now. That'll probably move into actually useful within a year and a half. AI music is going to become more common. A lot of stuff to figure out together. So looking forward to sort of discovering this brave new world. And also I think, as we enter end of year and we enter full-blown election time, just hope everyone sort of takes care of themselves and does some deep breathing or whatever you need to do to relax, because we need you. We need you to stay rested and calm and ready for a big end of year. And look forward to doing it together. So that's it. We're going to pause there. Anyway, again, if you're in Orlando, shoot me an email. We'll get you to a party tonight. If you're not in Orlando and you want to get on a flight, you've got 5 hours to be here. We would love to hang out with you. And for that, otherwise, we will see you on Thursday for most of you. So come on Thursday. We did this session last week, so you don't have to come. You did it last week, but everyone who came last week was just sort of in the mind-blown emoji world. Thursday, Meredith, is we're going to do a showcase of the Grant Assistant tool. So check that out. Should be really fun. Be about half an hour, super casual. come check that out. People absolutely loved it last week. So yeah. Anyway, well, I'll see you at Halloween. So happy fall and talk to you all soon.